Welcome back to the Holy Spirit verse by verse. Today we are in Acts 15:8. And Acts 15 is another passage about the Holy Spirit's work that you need to know. Back in Acts 10, as we saw starting in episode 166, the Gentiles entered the church when they received the gift of the Holy Spirit and began to speak in tongues. The evidentiary presence of the Holy Spirit in them caused Peter to preach the gospel and to baptize them into Jesus. Following that, as we saw in the last three episodes, Paul and Barnabas took the gospel to the Gentiles on their first missionary trip. This inclusion of the Gentiles was opposed by many Jews. It began after Cornelius' conversion with a group Luke calls the circumcision party in Acts 11:4. It concluded after Paul's journey when that group, comprised of Jewish Christians with a Pharisaical history in their faith, began to teach that every Gentile Christian needed to be circumcised to keep their customs about the law of Moses. Many modern commentators simply call these false teachers Judaizers. That brings us to Acts 15. To provide an apostolic answer to this anti-Gentile false doctrine that was gaining strength in the church, the apostles convened a council in Jerusalem. During the discussions of that council, Peter refers to his time in the house of Cornelius. Our study of the text revealed the prophetic powers of the Holy Spirit in the house of the first Gentile convert. His presence caused those in that home to begin to speak in tongues. That's back in chapter 10, verses 45 and 46. In Peter's retelling of those events in this passage, he states that the presence of tongue speaking in Cornelius' home was God's bearing witness to the Gentiles' right to the gospel and his giving of the Holy Spirit to them. Peter's words equate the witness of God and the giving of the Holy Spirit to the miraculous powers supplied to the early Christians. Please keep this in mind as your mind reflects back to Acts 5:32, which we discussed in episodes 149 through 153. Peter is the speaker in both passages. In both texts, he directly states that the Holy Spirit is bearing witness. Once again, do not make the Bible hard. Peter is not making two mutually exclusive arguments while using the same language in Acts 5 and Acts 15. How did the Holy Spirit bear witness? Peter expressly says that the Spirit did so when God gave them the Holy Spirit just as he did to us. And both times, in Acts 2 and Acts 10, the given Spirit caused people who had received him to speak in tongues. The bearing of witness in Acts 5 and Acts 15 both point to the prophetically empowered tongue speaking as the evidence of the Spirit's witness. You know why, right? Because as we have seen it dozens of times in this series, it is because the Spirit's work is always prophetic.